righty, here we are. How's everybody doing tonight? Looks like we've already got a fair sized crowd over there in the chat room. Welcome to the CNC with Dave Gatton show. If you haven't figured it out, I'm Dave Gatton, and we're going to be doing just a simple question and answer session tonight. I'm flying solo, as you can see, so make sure you keep your questions easy ones. But I did want to go over a couple of things before we get started. Before I do that, let's just see who all's out here. Did I want to do a few shout outs here? Looks like we got Larry Galt in the house, Wayne Hurl, Jim Senecola, Dean is watching tonight, Steve from Harnell Media is here, Glenn Helwig, Paul Stewart, Steve Misher, Dave Kraus, Robert Sams, Bart Bixel, and he's also reminding folks to set your clock back because daylight saving time starts sometime tonight. And finally, tomorrow, both my clocks in my Explorer and my truck will now be to the right time. Jesse from JJ Woodshop's here. My old buddy Hitch Hamilton. How you doing, Hitch? Mike Haichu. Jerry Brown. Tailgate party has more action in the show. Yeah, there was already a bunch of folks over there in the chat room. Brian Moomy's here. Kevin Harder, excuse me. Harry Ragland, Ed Newman, J Fabrications, Ronald Ledger, Stephen Toronto's here. How you doing, Stephen? Let's see. What does this say? Hello. Good night. Watching your video from Puerto Rico. When I saw your machine, I am delighted. I'm hanging on making me one for work. Will facilitate the work. Good night, Dave. Yeah. All right. Thank you for stopping by here. Ryan Ballard. Evening party people. Okay. I guess we're party people. I don't know. Leroy CNC Woodworks is here. George H. Rothfuss. How you doing, George? Rob Hampton. Dave Matthews. Old Jim. He's here. Good old Jim. Charles Lawrence. Becca Miller. I had a great show last week with her. If you missed it, link is down below in the description, or actually it's the link to the whole playlist, which I want to talk about here in a little bit. Gary Hammett, Lazy O Woodworks, Keith Stanford, Tim Halcomb, Herb Caldwell, Herb from Delaware, I guess. Let's see, Roger the Tinker, Leo Steger. Man, a bunch of folks. I'm not even nowhere near the end of the list yet. Barry Curtis, Kevin Calhoun, Mike Smith, Tim DeLine is here, Ian Foote, David Howes, Jerry Bonifield, George Puckett. All right, and if I missed anybody, I apologize. I think I got most everybody there. Anyway, we're going to do a little bit of a question and answer session. So if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I hope I can answer them. I've been a CNC guy for a long time, but I don't know everything. I still learn new stuff all the time. And I really only know about the stuff I do because there's a lot of things. For instance, the Raspberry Pi thing, that's Ryan Ballard's thing. He's the guy to ask if you got a question about that. But anyway, before we get started, I wanted to show something here. As I mentioned, because I know there may be some folks out here that maybe your first time watching, but I've been doing this CNC thing for a long, long time, well before the YouTube thing. but when I started doing the YouTube thing, there's probably not a whole lot of topics about Hobby CNC that I haven't shot a video about, or at least partially about, at some point or another. And I know I see all the time in the Facebook groups, I see questions about something, and I'm like, man, I did a video on that, but it was like, 3 or 4 years ago or something like that. So I wanted to point out today, and I screen shared here. Let's see if I can get back here. But if you go to just the YouTube thing, and you want to say, like I've already got one put in here, it says Dave Gatton Rotary. If you want to see if has old Dave ever done a video about a rotary axis, all you got to do is go to the YouTube search, put in my name, Dave Gatton, and then rotary, and click search, and boom, you can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4. There's where we did a show. This is the CNC with Dave number 21. So this was like 3 years ago. So there's all kinds of information that is out there that you might not think about. If you want to see if old Dave's done one about a laser, you can come and click that. And you can see that we've talked about the laser during these shows several times. I think this was the first one when I was trying out my JTech laser. I've got laser settings. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff out there. So the point I'm trying to make is that if you take about 30 seconds to search, you'll probably find the answer to your question. When you're looking there. And I also wanted to point out too, that down below in the show description, this is for you YouTube folks, it's not on Facebook, but if you're watching on YouTube and you click the little show more thing where it drops down, you'll see that I have links to that playlist that includes every single show for the CNC with Dave Gatton show. And I think right now, I think we're at like 86 or something like that. So we've been doing it, and then I did, I think, 61 called just CNC with Dave. So there's tons of information out there, tons of topics, if you just take a minute to search. Also in that, in the show description down here, right below that link, I also have the link for the playlist for the build videos that I did for the Gatton CNC, because I see a lot of questions. And again, these questions could be answered easily if you just watch that video. That's why I did all this, put out all this information. That's what it's there for. And all those are also on the website too. You could go to the davegatton.com website. And there's even a page, I think it says watch build video, Gatton CNC build videos or whatever. So I just wanted to point that out in case some of you may forget about that stuff, that it's out there. Because like I said, I see a lot of questions that I see posted in the Facebook groups, and I'm like, man, if they just take 2 seconds and look, it's there. Anyway, all right, let's see if we've got any questions. Let me scroll back through here. Let's see here. Barry Curtis says, Dave, do you have all the settings for your VFD in a file somewhere? I just upgraded to a 4.0 kilowatt air-cooled spindle, and it came with a new one. Okay, I guess you mean came with a new VFD. I don't know if ours would be the same settings. I don't have them wrote down anywhere. I have, I've had people ask me about my settings, and I'll say, well, hold on, and I'll take my phone out to mine and turn my VFD on and go through them. I go, well, which one do you need? I'll take, because if they've got one that's exactly like mine, and I just read them off to them. But most of the stuff is the same default settings that it came with. There's a few certain ones that you have to change. And I think I do have some of those penciled into that little book. It's supposed to be the instruction manual, but it's all a bunch of Chinglish. It's very hard to understand. But I think either in the front or the back of that book, there was a place to write down ones. And I wrote them down. And to be perfectly honest, I couldn't even tell you for sure where that little book is right now, because it's probably up out there in the shop, buried up under something, because I don't look at it. Once you get it running right, you don't look at it again. So I don't know. I don't know what kind of, there might be some difference, because you said 4.0, that's a little bigger. Mine's a 2.2 and in air cooled. I don't know. Might be pretty similar. Let's see here. All right, let's see. Okay, what do I use for dust collection? That's a good question, Tom. Well, first of all, let me just say I have one of the best friends ever, my buddy Jim, that I talk about from time to time. He was the recipient of the Gatton CNC that I did the build in that video. When I got it all done, I gave him that CNC. But we do a lot of things for each other. He's my electrician, so he does a lot of wiring stuff, because I don't like fooling with that electricity. So he does all that. And he had one time I was over at his house, and he lives right around the corner from me, by the way. And he says, you need a dust collector. And I was at the time using a Craftsman 6 horsepower shop vac, I think. And I used that for a long time. And I mean, it worked well. And I also had one of those, I don't know how you say it, theme, whatever, baffles, that I made. And there's a video on that, by the way, sitting on a trash can. So I had the vacuum cleaner pulling, and it would spin through there, and then it'd just go in the trash can. And that worked out really well. But then my buddy Jim, when I was over there one day, said, "Hey, can you use this dust collector? I got 2 of them." He says, "I really don't. This was just kind of in my way." And I said, "Well, sure." So here he gave me a dust collector. So I've got it in the corner of my shop, and then I have some flex hose running to some 4-inch PVC, and then it goes up and across the ceiling. And I have one branch where I drop another 4-inch flexible hose down to my Gatton CNC, and then I also have one going over farther to the new Avid CNC that I got. And the dust collector is called a Reliant, I think is the brand name. It's kind of like a Jet, I think. And other than that, I don't know much about it. It works really good, though. Works real good. Clyde says, "Will the 270 ounce motors be strong enough? I can get them for way less money than the 425s in Canada." That's a hard question to answer, because I had some little 269 ounce that I've used for years. I still have them. But they ran a machine that uses the same lead screw as the Gatton, the same couplers, same Acme nut. Everything's basically the same, except this was a metal frame. If you go back and look at my really old videos where I'm using my Sidewinder, and when I say Sidewinder, I'm not talking about the shoestring budget plywood. I'm talking about a metal machine that I designed and sold way back. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. And they work great, the 269 ounce. I don't get the same speeds with that than I do my Gatton. So, the more torque, the bigger torque the motors, you're going to be able to get probably a little bit more speed. Not a tremendous amount, but anyway. So, and again, if you were I don't know how big you're planning on making your machine, but if you're planning on making it pretty big, I would try to get the 425s. I know those work with the Gatton CNC. The 270s may, or I think they would work. They probably just would. You'd be able to tell the difference if you swapped them out. You go, oh yeah, this is a lot better with the 425s. So, all right, let's see here. I'm having to sit here and read through it. If you guys put a question, make sure you use a question mark at the end so I know it's a question. I'm sitting here trying to read through some of these. I think some of these are just comments. Carol says, speaking of before YouTube, my husband, a machinist, finally retired yesterday, 45 years. Well, congratulations to him, Carol. Oh, okay. I see Dean's coming. He said, I don't think it's so much the watching it as it is the remembering of what we've seen. So much information being crammed in my puny little brain. Some of us are old fellers too. I know what you're talking about, because a lot of times when people ask me a question, they'll go, well, have you done a video on this? And I'm like, yeah, I know that whether or not I've done a video on it, but I can't tell you whether it was a year ago, 2 years ago, 5 years ago. Because like I said, I've done so many that they all just kind of run together. But my point is, you guys can go do the search just as easy as I can. That's what I was trying to point out. If you just put in my name and then whatever topic you're looking for, if I've done a video on it, it should pop up. Let's see here. Okay. Tom says, I currently have the same as your original Craftsman / Dust Deputy setup, but heard good things about the 2 horsepower Harbor Freight. Yeah, I think Jerry Brown, I think you're out there in the chat. If I'm not mistaken, don't you have the Harbor Freight dust collector? I think those work really well. In fact, that's probably what I was going to get. And then, like I said, it was just a fluke. I was over at Jim's house, and he says, hey, you want this? He said, I'm going to throw it away if you don't want it. I'm like, yeah, I'll take it. So, and I don't know how old it is. It's probably pretty old if it was his, but it still works great. It's not 220 or anything. I'm pretty sure it just plugs into 110. I think. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it does, but it works great. And I have a switch. If any of y'all have seen on the front of my Gatton CNC, I have these little, just looks like regular light switches. And I have one of those that turns on the dust collector, so I can use it, just reach over and flip that switch, whether I'm using it with my Gatton or if I'm using it with the Avid. Okay, let's see. Portal Woodworks is in the house. How you doing? John Ian is here. Let's see. Making Memories with B&G. And I'm trying to remember. I think that's James, I believe. If I called you by the wrong name, I apologize. I think it's James. Paul Stewart says, Tom P., I have used the Harbor Freight one for years. For the money, it works well. Yeah. Becca Miller also says she has the Harbor Freight. It is perfect. I mean, you think about it. Think about what a dust collector is. I mean, I know Harbor Freight's not known for some of their top-notch quality stuff sometimes, but a dust collector, I think you probably couldn't go wrong buying Harbor Freight. Clyde says his table is 48 by 45. The gantry is 48 inches. I don't know. I can't tell you what to buy because it's not my budget. It's yours. But if it was me, I'd try to get the 425s, only because I know that everybody that runs them, they work fine. The other ones would probably work. They just wouldn't be as, obviously not as much torque. So it'd be a little more limiting than the 425s. Jerry Brand, here he is. He says, I have 2 of the Harbor Freight dust collectors. They are awesome. Well, you can take it to the bank then, Tom. If Jerry Brown says it's awesome, then by gosh, it's awesome. So Patrick Workshop says, I use my Street Cone Cyclone with my 6 horsepower shop vac, works great. And Patrick, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe you had a video on that from back in the day, didn't you? Kevin Calhoun also uses a Harbor Freight dust collector and a Dust Deputy Cyclone. Yeah, I'd like to have a Dust Deputy thing for another location. I mean, I've got those two. I don't really need it there. But like I said, I built one of those whatever, however you pronounce it, baffle things. And it worked really good. And I made mine where I took like the part that's curved. I made that out of like 1/8 inch Lexan so I could curve it around so it's clear. And so you could actually look and see the stuff spinning around in there. And it did a pretty good job. Let's see here. I think I'm missing some stuff here. Let me scroll back up here. Steven. Wait a minute. Yeah, James Long. Okay, thank you, James. I thought that's what your name was. Leroy says, check out YouTube Harbor Freight dust collector upgrade. Okay. I'm sure there's probably lots of reviews of the Harbor Freight dust collector on YouTube because I know a lot of people have those. Stephen asked, how many tools can a Harbor Freight dust collector handle? Well, how many tools are you going to be running at one time? Most guys, when they have a dust collector set up to all their things, they have all those blast gates on them, and they just, unless they've got a helper in the shop, maybe they're running 2 things at once. But I doubt that anybody's probably running much more than that at the same time. I know on the, like I said, I have mine set up where I have a hose coming down for my Gatton, and I also have one going over to my Avid, and I have blast gates on them, and I have run it with both of them running, and it still does a good job pulling up the chips. So as far as on a CNC, 2 of them, I guess. I don't know, maybe more, but I know it'll work with 2. Okay, let's see. Ryan Ballard says, Carol, I am a member on a laser group and see a lot of compliments on the Thunder laser. Is that something new? I don't know if I've heard of the Thunder laser. Okay, Jerry says, I did the custom exhaust thing, but I'm needing to finish it up with a Cyclone attached. Yeah, I probably should rig something like that up with mine, because mine, that's the only bad thing. I like it, especially since Jim gave it to me. It was free, but it's a real pain in the butt to empty when it gets full, because it's got that cloth bag, and y'all know how those go. It's a real pain to get it out, and it's heavy when it's full. I use my little hand truck to kind of get it up under there and hold it, but I always end up spilling some out, and then a lot of it stays up in the thing, and when you pull the bag out, and the whole thing shakes, and then it gets a big pile on the floor there. So I'd like to have a better solution for that. Clyde says, I talked him into it. Well, don't let me talk you into anything. I'm just saying, I know 425s work. I think 269 or 270 would work. It'd just be a little slower. Becca Miller says, Stephen, I have one in my other shop, but I only run one machine at a time, so no problem. Yeah, when you're just yourself working in your shop, that's probably all you're gonna use. And you just have to remember, if you've got it connected to a bunch of different equipment, the only thing you have to remember is when you go to use it, remember to have the other blast gate closed and this one open so it'll pick up, because they don't work good when that blast gate's closed. I can tell you that for sure. I have one of the things I'm having to get used to with my Gatton. It's just automatic, because the switch, for everything is right there in front of the machine. So it's not a big deal. I have my little wired remote that Hobby made for me that I control my spindle with. So it's, turn the spindle on, reach down, flip the switch for the dust collection. But when I'm running my Avid only, with it, everything is automatic. The spindle's all controlled through the software and stuff. So I find myself hitting cycle start and then going, why is it not picking up the dust? And I realized, you idiot, you didn't reach over and turn that thing on, because the dust collection is not set up with that. It's only on that switch for both machines. So sometimes I'll forget to turn it on, but it doesn't take you long. It cuts just a little bit and you go, oh yeah, I forgot to turn that on. Let's see. Roger the Tinker says, Stephen, I would say no more than 2 at a time. Yeah, that's what I would say, because, you start opening up more than 2 blast gates, and I think you're going to lose some pickup there. Steve says, I have the Harbor Freight with a Super Dust Deputy and a Grizzly filter on the top. Has worked well, but selling because I got something bigger. Okay, yep. All righty. Trying to understand what that comment was about. Clyde says, what router do the brackets fit? All right, I'm going to assume you're talking about the Gatton CNC kit, the router mount and the little things that come with it. They, there's probably more routers out there, off-the-shelf routers like at Home Depot or Lowe's or maybe even Tractor Supply or Ace Hardware or somewhere like that have the 3.5-inch body. Porter cables is a very common router. You can pick up, if you want to get just the router motor and not the plunge and all that stuff, where you might have to get it at Lowe's or Home Depot or something like that. You can get those all day long off of Amazon. But I'm a big fan of Porter cable. That's why I always say Porter cable. But their 690 series and their 890 series are both 3.5. There's a Bosch, I want to say 1617 or something. I don't have one of those, but if somebody does, I think that one's 3.5 inch. That's just a common size. So that's why I sell the kit with that size, so that, because pretty much everybody's got some kind of a router laying around or can get one real easily. That's a 3.5-inch body. Okay, let's see. Okay, Tennessee Wood Science says Harbor Freight does not sell replacement bags for their dust collector. That is the only problem. The bag rips easily. Order new bags from Amazon. Okay, is it some kind of like a plastic bag, like a heavy plastic, almost like trash bag or something? I don't know what they come with. See, like I said, mine come with a cloth bag with one of those little built-in belt type things you cinch it tight. So I just pull it off, dump it, shake it out good, and then put the same bag back on. Let's see here. Steven says, thanks for the answer, folks. Appreciate it. Barry Curtis says, I use a 55-gallon drum with the homemade funnel. Yeah. And I bet you have to use a hand truck to dump that drum, because those things get heavy when you get them full of full of dust like that. Oh, okay. Ryan's talking about the Thunder. That's a standalone laser. Okay, so is it kind of like a those? What was it? A G40 or what was it? Everybody was getting at one time. I think a G. I might be wrong. G40 or something like that. Um, Jerry says 50-gallon open top drum is pretty bad if it gets full, but those bags were a no. Yeah, there's. I mean, let's face it. It's dusty. It's a mess when you open it up. Stuff. There's probably no perfect way, um, unless you just had it vented outside. you know, just go out there and rake the mountain down a little bit every once in a while. I don't know. I have a big um, sinkhole that's up in the corner of my lot. I was the lucky guy that got the lot on the very end. So when they were building this subdivision years ago, anytime they cleared trees, they would bury them in the very corner of where it's actually my lot and my neighbor on the end of this first cul-de-sac. And of course, it's been just enough time, 30 years, 25, 30 years, where now the logs are rotting so that it's a sinkhole. So I just take mine and dump it in that sinkhole. Because basically, if you've ever just dumped sawdust or router dust or whatever out on the ground, it eventually looks just like dirt because it gets all the other stuff mixed in it. Ryan says, yeah, K40, not G40. Yeah, I'm thinking Grizzly or something, aren't I? Yeah, K40. Yeah, but larger. Okay. 30-gallon metal garbage works great. Yeah. Now the garbage, I should mention that the garbage can that I used to use, where I made my baffle thing. I made a groove that matched the diameter, and it would set down in that groove, so it sealed really good, and almost too good, because a lot of times when I was running it, and this is just with a 6 horsepower shop vac or Craftsman vac, and it would like kind of suck in the plastic thing, but it still worked. It still worked. It never did collapse it completely. Alrighty. Let's see. Dean says, I have the Bosch with auto sensing feed. Can't recall the number, and it could not fit more perfectly if Bosch themselves made the bracket. I'm so impressed with the parts in this Gatton CNC kit. Well, thank you, Dean. I put a little thought into them, just a little bit. But I'm not sure. I want to say the Bosch is something 16, 17, but I could be wrong. I don't know. But I'm pretty sure they make one that, well, obviously they do. That's a 3.5 body. Let's see. Okay, I don't see any more questions. I think we're caught up. Did I miss any? Let me scroll up and look real quick. Yeah, Jerry's got one. Any plans in the future on a plasma Gatton? Probably not. If I was going to do a plasma, and I've got parts out there to make one, it would be for a Garage Works because it's metal. You could probably do it with a Gatton. It'd just be more of a, you just have to probably be more careful, and you definitely would need a water pan of some kind underneath it, because you get a lot of that sparky stuff flying around, and wood just doesn't go good, So, all right, I don't think I missed any. Okay, wait a minute. Here's a question. I think Tuner Ace AA 440. I know I will have a learning curve whether I start with a router or spindle. Is one or the other easier to learn? Not really. I don't think. It's not so much whether it's, whether it's a router or a spindle spinning, it's the bits you have in it. You're going to learn, you got to learn feeds and speeds with your machine, with your router or spindle, or your material, whatever material cut. There's so many factors. I don't even like to talk about feeds and speeds. When people say, well, what do you do this? I can tell you what I use, but I may not know what kind of machine you have. Your machine may be stiffer than mine. It may be less stiff than mine. So you can't just go, oh, you have a CNC, I have a CNC, so you should run 300 inches a minute and cut this deep. Everything's different. You have to, there's charts out there. People will always try to give you charts and stuff, but a lot of those charts are made up by companies that make the big commercial machines, and they might get you in the ballpark, but still the best way to do it is to learn. Just real quick, the easiest way, I think, if you've got, let's say you got a Porter Cable 690 router and we'll just say a Gatton CNC, and you're getting ready to cut plywood, 3/4 inch plywood, and you don't have a clue how fast you should go or how deep you should go or anything. Well, it's just kind of common sense to me. You just start really conservative. You start slow. I would start at like 50 inches a minute. If you got a 1/4 inch end mill, if you're unsure and you're brand new, just go a 16th deep. That's only 1/4 the diameter of the bit. Usually the rule of thumb is half the diameter, which would be an 1/8. But just go a 16th deep, 50 inches a minute, probably run okay. And then and if you're in Mach 3 or UC, CNC, or pretty much any control software, you can speed it up on the fly. And then so you can bump it up and, until you hear it start chatter. And if you don't know what that is, you'll know it when you hear it, because you can tell it's kind of, the bit's kind of shaky. And then you just back it back down till it quits doing that. And that's the right speed for that. So say you started at 16th and you go, wow, I can speed this up to like 150 inches a minute. And it's only when I get past that, it starts getting a little iffy. So then you know that's that combination. But then you go, well, yeah, I got to make so many passes. I want to try to go deeper. So now I want to try to go twice as deep. So I'm going to go an 1/8 deep. Well, still start out again at the 50 inches a minute. Bump it up as you get going. And the same thing, when you get to where you're going too fast for that depth of cut, that router or spindle will let you know. You'll hear noise, you'll hear chatter, you won't get good cuts. And then to back it back off. And there you go. And that's, like I said, I've been saying this for years. This isn't rocket science. It's, it just takes time to gain that experience. But the best way to learn that part of it, the feeds and speeds, is trial and error. I wouldn't even ask somebody else what they cut. If I was getting ready to cut a brand new kind of material I've never cut before, I probably wouldn't even bother asking people. Because it only takes a minute to figure it out yourself. That's probably more answer than you wanted, but there you go. Now I'm way behind again. Let's see. Oh, I had scrolled up. That's what it was. Mark Kyle says, hi, Dave. I came in late. It's almost lunchtime here in Oz. How is your Avid CNC going? Are you happy with it? I have to say, although I've had it for, I don't know, I've had it all together and running for probably over a month. I still don't have a lot of miles on it. I'll probably be doing a review video on it at some point, but I don't even, I always hate, when you're thinking about trying to buy something, or you got something in mind and you go, well, let me get on YouTube and check out the reviews, see, and you get somebody that's doing a review video, but they only had it 2 weeks or something. I think that's just, you shouldn't even be thinking about doing a review on it until you really put some miles on it, kick the tires and all that kind of stuff. So, so far it's performing great. I'm doing some videos. I've got another video that'll be coming out in the morning of a project I did. And as I shoot these videos doing different projects, I'm seeing that I'm really happy with the performance, the accuracy, the speed, the precision, all that stuff. It's just right there where it should be, and you would expect it to be, for what you have to pay for one of those. It's a good thing. Let's see. What are plastic 1/4-inch dowel pins? Okay, okay, I gotta back up here a minute. Okay, here we go. I got to get to the very beginning where they start talking here. Dave says, have you done two-sided machining? If so, what method did you use to index your material on the tabletop? Basically what they're talking about here, using the dowel pins. Yeah, it's all really, you don't, if you just had a, let me make sure I'm saying this correctly. If you had something you need to do both sides, but you still need to do a profile cut to cut it out of a skeleton, as long as you cut it out of the skeleton first, and let's say on your lower left you had like one of those L-shaped things that you slide everything down into. Well, as long as that's accurate and it's, when you slide it down in there, it's in the same spot every time. If you run the first side and then cut it out and then flip it, you part it out and then put that part down in there, and then you have the second part programmed coming off of that there, it'd be the same, basically the same thing as using the dowels. But I've done it both ways, using the dowels and just using locating things that I had locked in. It's basically just knowing you get it in the same position when it's flipped over, and also which way you're flipping it over makes a difference too. I'm not even going to try to go into depth explaining that, because there's lots of good videos on YouTube about that. In fact, I would go to Vectric, their YouTube channel, and put double-sided machining, and they have some great videos on that. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. Although I found that, and we've talked about this on this show before, is a lot of times people will say, well, I make a checklist so I don't forget to do this, and this. Because a lot of times when you're doing stuff, especially with a hobby machine, you need to turn things on in a certain order. Obviously, if you're running a simple router where you have to reach up and flip the switch on the router, obviously you have to do that before you hit cycle start. But like I said, checklists are fine, and if you need one and want to make one, that's great. But I found that after a few times, that checklist, you really don't look at it anymore. You might write it down and paste it on the side of your machine or something, but after a while, or a very short while, you won't even look at it anymore, because it doesn't take long to, especially when you screw up, because when you screw up, then you really remember. Don't ask me how I know that, but yeah. Let's see. Jim Senicola says, use alignment pins. Vectric is a good video doing double-sided cuts. Yeah. And I mean, their software does it. So if you're going to learn how to do it with the Vectric software, you might as well learn from the people who wrote the software. Although there's, like I said, there's probably all kinds of videos out there doing it. Troy says, Dave, I like your shirt. Are they for sale on your website? in case people can't read that, it says Garage Works CNC right there. I don't have. I don't know. I don't know if these are on the website or not. I know there's T-shirts. That's a good question. I don't think these are, because I actually had a local company make. I think I got like a half a dozen of these, and then I got I don't know, a handful of the denim ones that have the short sleeve. Let's see. I don't think I have. Well, that's the Gatton CNC merch. I also have a merchandise store for the Garage Works. Let me go look and see. It's pretty bad when you don't even know what you have here. And I'm not even sure I have a link to that Garage Works merch site. I guess I don't. No wonder I don't sell things. Now, anyway, I'm pretty sure this shirt, you can get T-shirts and coffee mugs and, ball caps and all kinds of stuff. But I don't think you can get a denim shirt like this, because I got these locally. Okay. Let's see. Will Mach 3 run on Windows 10? Yes. Don't let anybody tell you it won't. It won't work with a parallel port with Windows 10. But Mach 3 will run on Windows 10 if you're using some kind of a USB CNC motion controller. I still to this day see people tell other people, it won't work with Windows 10. Yeah, it will, because I do it. I do it, Let's see. Hitch was saying hello to Jack. He saw Jack come in here and say hi to me a while ago. Jack's my big dog, by the way, for you new folks that don't know. Yeah, Barry says, yep, first bit taught me a lot. Yeah, sometimes it takes, that kind of a lesson. That's why I always say, if I've broken bits before, but I haven't really broke bits before because I was stupid. It's just that they broke from, using them a long time and stuff like that. But the reason I've never broke one from being stupid, or I shouldn't say stupid, but making a mistake, is because I always have started out conservative. Even now, I run a lot of things way more conservative than, people would come see me running something. They go, oh, you could probably run that a whole lot faster. Yeah, but most of the time when I run it, I'm not even there. I'm doing something else. I'm in the house and I'm listening. I would rather run it conservative and know that it's going to work every single time than to go, okay, well, I'm going to push the limit, and then I have to stand there and watch it, because you're not productive if you're standing there watching it. And I know people, I get people all the time say, oh, I love just sitting there watching it. Yeah, they're fun to watch, but you really need to get over that. You really do, because there's so many other things you could be doing while that thing's running, especially if you're doing this to make a little money or something. You can't be efficient if you're just standing there watching that machine. Let's see. Troy says, I just like shirts with a pocket, hard to find. Yeah, none of the T-shirts I have a pocket like that. Okay, Jim says, question from Carol higher up in the chat. Anyone in this group have a laser engraver cutter? We are looking at okay, maybe y'all have already talked about that, because that's the Thunder laser. Let's see. Oops. Earl says, Dave, is 3/4 MDF a good base for the table? Because I have a ping pong table I don't use anymore. It is straight, flat, and it's been for years. It is half of it is 60 by 54. Well, Well, when you say good base for the table, I'm assuming you're going to have a good solid frame underneath that. You could do that. You could do that. I'm a big fan of. I've done this to every machine I have. Maybe not right away, but every machine I do now, I do it right away. And I take even for example the Avid CNC. I've got a video called "Adding a Spoil Board to My Avid CNC," and it's just when you buy one of them, it just has the aluminum extrusion frame, and then they have a program that where you take. I think they want you to take like 1 inch MDF or 3/4 inch, maybe it's one or the other, and you can put it on there, clamp it, and then you run a program and it cuts holes, and then you bolt that down, and they cut big slots where you can put like an F clamp and stuff like that. I didn't want to do that. I like running. First of all, I like something good and solid, so I wanted a plywood top. So I did the same thing they do, only I use plywood and have that bolted to the aluminum extrusion. And then on top of that, since I now had plywood, which is something good to screw into, I laid down my T-track and my MDF, 3/4 MDF strips. So that's the kind of top I like to use. And I do that to every machine I have now has that kind of a top. And I use the cheap plywood cut out of scrap hold down clamps. I know there's lots of other fancy methods and all that, but I mean, you can't get any cheaper than free. So that's why I use those. You mess one up, you cut it in two or whatever, you just throw the knob and the bolt on another one and go. Board on YouTube is the Bob breakout board that makes a difference between Mach 3 compatibility. I see many that say UC, CNC, or Mach 3 compatible. I could be wrong, but I can't see any reason why a product would say Mach 3 compatible. And if it didn't mention UC, CNC, I can't see any reason why it wouldn't be compatible with UC, CNC as well. Now, the difference with UC, CNC, let me point this out. You can go to the, what is the name of that thing? It's CNC 4PC or CNC Drive, I think is, if you're on Amazon, one of those two things. And you can buy a UC 100, which is a USB motion controller, or you can get the UC 300 or the UC 400, which is the Ethernet motion controller. And you can use any of those with Mach 3. But if you buy the UC CNC software, the way it works is to get, when you go get that software, you download it. It's a demo, just like it is when you first get Mach 3. But to get a license file to make it become a full functional version, you have to have one of those other motion controllers, either a UC 100, a UC 300, or a UC 400 ETH. And what they do is when you say, okay, I've got one of these, they take the serial number off of that. For example, I have a UC 100. I have like 3 or 4 of them, but the license works with one of them, and they have that serial number embedded into that license. So if I have one of my other UC 100s connected and I try to run the UC CNC software, it'll still say, wait a minute, that's a demo. You're in demo mode because that's not the thing. But if I put the correct one on there that's tied in with the license file, then it will work. So I'm not sure I'm answering your question. I'm probably confusing you more than answering you, because it's not really the breakout board. I think a breakout board would pretty much work with anything, because it's kind of independent of, unless you're talking about one that has the built-in motion controller in it. I would have to know a little more info about which one you're talking about. Greg Hamilton says GarageWorks merchandise, no denim shirts. Yeah, I'm pretty sure these are just something I got for me. I didn't know they would be popular for everybody else. So. Yeah, Clyde says parallel port is only 32-bit. So if you're using USB or Ethernet, yes, Mach 3 will run on a 64-bit. Exactly. And I've been saying that for a long time. And there's still people that'll go, oh, you can't run that on Windows 10. It won't run. Yeah, it will. You just got to have some other stuff there to make it work. He says, I just purchased a USB breakout board, but haven't tried it out yet. Okay. Now, is it a USB breakout board with / motion controller or just the breakout board? Let's see here. Dean says, more thumbs up, please. Come on, folks. It helps Dave, and it's not hard. Yeah, we got 47. And according to this thing here, there's 104 y'all watching over there on YouTube. So appreciate thumbs up. Gives me the warm and fuzzies. And YouTube likes them too. So Becker. Yeah, what am I drinking? Becca says, Dean, I use a composite nailer when I cut out the computer station on my new big CNC because it cut out a half sheet. Yeah, there's quite a few brands of that composite nailer. Hobby's got one. I'm not sure which brand he's got. I think if you go to the Avid CNC or CNC Router Parts is what it used to be website, I think they sell one on there, but it's just a little gun that shoots basically a plastic nail, and you can hold down your stuff, and because it's a plastic nail, when it gets all done, you can just kind of take something and kind of hit it to the side, because they're not good for side force, but they're good for hold down force. So and of course, if you hit one with the bit, it's plastic, so it won't even know it. You go right through it. Becca Miller says, it worked well, but of course left holes. Wouldn't use it for anything but a shop cart. Yeah. And I see comments on here, and I know they're probably related to something that was said way back, and I can't even remember what it was. The delay on this thing is so slow that it's hard to remember what we were talking about when I finally see something pop up here. The Mach 3 website is really poorly worded on compatibility. Yeah. Well, I think that a lot of it too is because Mach 3 has been around forever. All these other companies that try to make stuff for Mach 3 don't do a good job describing their product either. Okay, let's see. A lot of conversation. Yeah, Dean says the Synco, that's a brand of composite nailer. Okay, I don't know how we got talking about hand sanitizer over there in the chat. I don't know where y'all are going with that. Let's see. Okay, well, I guess I'm caught up on questions then. Let me scroll back just real quick. Okay, Tom says CNC 4 PC. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Yeah, Dean's got a good idea here. He says, what I thought I might do, Becca, is to make Dave's pin attachment. Yeah, Yeah, I just did a video the other day on my little, actually I use a Sharpie with mine. Clamp in a pencil and outline the project first, then nail it down. Yeah, you can do that because then you can see exactly where the border is and where it's safe to put a nail or a screw or whatever. Another thing too, along those lines is when you're doing a project, you pretty much always, there's rare exceptions, but pretty much all the time you're going to run your profile toolpath last. And usually, when you start out with holes, or you're going to start out with some of the small stuff first, and then the bigger cutouts, the pockets, and you work your way up depending on your tooling and how many different tool paths use that same tooling and stuff. But anyway, you're pretty much going to always do the profile pass last. Well, another thing you can do too is, you can run your program. Like say you wanted to cut something and you didn't want to use tabs. You didn't want to have to fool with the what do you call it? The CA glue and tape method and all that stuff. You just want something. You're only going to run it once and you just want to get it. Well, what you can do is if you've got places where you got holes in it, you can run that tool path first and then stop it before it gets to the profile path, and then take something and screw in those holes, with a washer or whatever you have to do to hold it down, and then finish parting it out. And then you don't have to put tabs or anything, and it's not going to move on you when it finishes cutting out. So, all right, let's see. Oh, okay. He was Steve. I guess he's talking about the Lysol concentrator. Everyone is sold out, including Amazon. I was in a Walgreens today, and they had not a single bottle of hand sanitizer. That wasn't what I was shopping. I wasn't shopping. I was just in there, but yeah, the shelf was empty. All right, I think we're going to wrap this one up. We've been going about an hour here. We've had a good crowd of folks. I appreciate the thumbs up that some of y'all have left over there. Clyde says, if your project has holes in it, I use them to screw things down. That's how I always do aluminum, because you don't want to put tabs on aluminum. Gosh, aluminum's, you want to when you're parting it out, you want to part it out completely. But when you're doing it on a CNC router like that, it's just easy to put a hole in it, and then put a screw in that hole, and then go ahead and cut it all the way out. Just make sure you get it screwed down good enough that it's not gonna move even a little bit, because it'll mess the part up. Okay. Yeah. Appreciate you guys hitting the thumbs up. I see it going up over there. Appreciate it. Okay. Steve says, Dave, good info to have. Thank you, Steve. I appreciate you being here. All right. I guess, let's see. It says, then I don't need $200 in aluminum channel hours of making clamps for dollars buying. Save on replacement router bits every time I hit. Yep. I mean, I see people use all kinds of stuff, and they can use whatever they want. But once I started making my own clamps out of scrap, I'm like, this is just too easy. And I have, if y'all have ever, I should have brought one in here if I'd known we were going to be talking about hold down clamps. But mine are just a strip. It's got a big long slot in the middle of it, and then it's got a little milled spot on the end where you can, put it on the edge of a piece of, material. And then I use, because I have the T-track that I buy from Orange Aluminum, all has, you just use simple 1/4 inch, 1/4 20 hex bolts. They fit right in the thing. And then since the 1/4 20 threads are sticking up, I cut myself some knobs, and I put a hole in it, and then I use those 1/4 20 what do I call them? Quarter 20 barrel nuts or T nuts. I guess they're T nuts, but they're the kind that you knock them in. And so you have the T nut part on the top of the knob, so that as you're screwing down your hole down, it's always trying to pull that through that material so it won't come loose. And I mean, it's dirt cheap, because you're always going to have projects when you're running stuff. Or scrap, I mean, not projects, but yeah, you're always going to have some scrap. And I keep on all of my computers for my machines, I always keep a program that will run if you pretend my phone is a hold down clamp, it'll run them this way, 90 degrees, or it'll run them this way. So if I got a piece of plywood or a piece of hardwood or something on the table, and I've just cut something out of it, and there's just a little bit left, and it's really not enough to make something else out of, I'll go, I can probably get some clamps out of that. And I'll go ahead and pull up while I've got the material clamped down, pull it up, run them. Even if I don't need them, throw them off to the side, and you'll always have clamps, and they're basically free, because the other project paid for those clamps. So, all right, I guess we're going to get out of here. I don't see. Dean says he loves the Saturday shows. Thank you, Dean. I appreciate it. Dave, do you know of anyone that has rebuilt the Z on the Garage Works to beef it up? I don't know of anybody that's built one. Now, I'm planning on doing some things with the Z axis for the Garage Works. That's one of the reasons why I bought the Avid, to do some prototyping of new products, and that's something I want to look at, is doing a beefier Z. And also, I've seen some people, and I'm not sure where they're getting them. I don't know whether they're getting them from, I think they're getting them from Velix CNC. If you go to Velix, it used to be K2 CNC. Now they're a new company called Velix, Velox. And they sell one it's an aluminum thing. And, I think it's about 600 and something bucks, I think. But yeah. And again, I keep telling people the Garage Works is all kind of designed around that compact router. It's not really designed. It was designed to compete against stuff like the Shapeoko and the X-Carve. So I didn't make it that beefy. But I know there's a lot of folks that want to run a spindle and stuff like that on it. So that's one of the things. I haven't said this is the first time you're hearing it, but I'm going to be working on some aluminum pieces where it will replace that whole Z box. So you heard it here first. All right, I guess I'm going to get out of here. Thank you again, folks, for the thumbs up. I appreciate it. And we'll do this again next week, I guess. I've got some more guests coming. One that's been on the show before, but it's been a long, long time ago. So most of you probably haven't even seen them, or don't remember it if you were here that long ago. So, but anyway, we're going to get out of here. Everybody have a good weekend, and we will see you all next week. Everybody take care.